With the Thousand Year Door remake finally out for the Nintendo Switch, we decided to rank every single partner, from Paper Mario and Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, from weak to powerful. And today our bottom tier is the C tier. And at the very bottom, we have a partner who barely deserves to be mentioned, Miss Mouse. As the only optional ally in either of the first two Paper Mario games, obtaining the Sneaky Thief requires completing a side quest that largely amounts to some tedious backtracking. And as a reward, you get the weakest partner in the game, with only a single attack lacking both in strength and flexibility, as well as a heal so expensive that you'd be better off popping a super mushroom or even using a star power instead. Miss Mouse is primarily a utility partner, useful if you're looking for treasure in the overworld or want to swipe a valuable item or badge off an enemy. However, item spawns on enemies aren't that common in the Thousand Year Door, so Miss Mouse is going to be spending most of her time chilling out in your party roster. She should have just stuck to being the Catwoman to Mario's Batman, even if she's totally the wrong species. Second from the bottom, we have Lackluster, who has some issues of his own, but more relevantly for our purposes, he doesn't bring all that much to the table in a fight either. While his Spiny Surge can help with managing the mechanics of the bosses of both chapters 6 and 7, other partners with target all attacks can do the same. And his damage just isn't as high as you'd want it to be, and his utility moves can't measure up to what some of the other partners can offer. By its very nature, boosting Mario's evasion with Cloud 9 will never be as reliable as boosting his defense, or simply boosting his offense to end the battle faster. Hurricane, meanwhile, can get you out of combat quickly, but because enemies defeated in this way don't give any star points, you'd get similar results out of running away. And likely with a higher success rate too. Poor Spike here is too little too late when he joins Mario's party near the end of Chapter 6. And unlike some other partners that do well early on but fall off later, he never really gets a chance to shine. We have to wonder what would have happened if his girlfriend Lackalulu had joined Mario instead. Given her disposition, she might have been the stronger of the two. Power, however, is more than merely raw strength. The pint-sized Firebrand Bombette has plenty of strength to spare, with all of her moves dealing damage via increasingly large explosions. The trouble is that the damage is all Bombette has going for her, and her Power Bombs and Mega Bombs will chew through Mario's stock of FP faster than any of the other partners' abilities. The sad reality is that, particularly in the original Paper Mario, the partners lack the tools to compete with the plumber in terms of pure offense. Bombette may be able to clear a room full of enemies, but so can Mario and any number of other partners working in tandem, and while draining less FP at that. Even Bombette's powerful first strike comes with the drawback of being difficult to set up against fast-moving enemies, in comparison to Mario's own options for initiating a battle. Sacrificing efficiency for damage in a game as generally easy as Paper Mario just honestly isn't going to earn you all too many points. But with that said, we now move into the B tier. The Thousand Year Door's resident Babam partner, Admiral Bobbery, improves on his predecessor in a handful of ways. His basic bomb attack comes free of charge, and unlike Bombette, he also boasts some utility courtesy of his beefy HP stat and the Hold Fast ability, encouraging him to act as a tank. Bobbery earns a slightly higher ranking for these defensive advantages, but in terms of offense, he's much the same as Bombette. Flashy, but not kind to your FP count. At least the sequel provides you with more ways to build around high FP strategies, but that effort could just as easily go towards making Mario or some of the more efficient partners even stronger. So apologies, Admiral, but the walking munitions game just isn't cutting it anymore. Now, Bobbery may not be sailing the seas much at this point, but the scatterbrained postman Paracari manages to continue his day job while he's off saving the world with Mario. He may have a knack for losing letters, but right from the start, Paracari distinguishes himself in combat as a superior alternative to Bombette. His initial moves are more versatile than hers and just as strong, particularly Shell Shot, which is great for striking bosses that favor the high ground, like Buzzer and Tutton Koopa. His later two moves aren't as impressive, although Air Raid is one of those attacks that can deal decent damage to all enemies, while not putting as much of a dent in your FP. Now, if only Paracari could keep a tighter hold on his mailbag. Faded Starlet Flurry was instead enjoying a cushy retirement before taking up with Mario. but now she's on a comeback tour and bringing with her all the range of a prima donna in her prime. She's even tankier than Bobbery, since she can use Lip Lock to deal damage and restore her own health at the same time. Flurry also comes with updated versions of lackluster skills. Gale Force will actually award star points when it blows enemies out of battle, and Body Slam is a cheap and easy way to hit targets too high for jumps. Compounding all those advantages is the fact that Flurry joins far earlier than Lackluster, giving her ample time to wow the audience with her stage presence. But she is still outshone by quite a few partners in combat. But in a game where battle takes place in a literal theater, there's no denying the value of an ally who knows how to give crowds what they want. Which brings us next to our A tier. In starting out, the shy Shadow Siren Vivian may not love the spotlight in the same way as Flurry, but she's certainly become a fan favorite among players. It's not just her character arc either. Vivian sticks by Mario at his lowest point in Chapter 4, even fighting against the other partners. Her Shade Fist is just as flexible as Flurry's basic attack, with the added perk of leaving a burn on the target. The same is true of Fiery Jinx, which targets all enemies and pierces defense, very helpful against certain bosses like Cortez and the Smork. Her biggest issue is that fire can be a finicky element later in the Thousand-Year Door, ineffective against certain types of baddies and outright dangerous against enemy bombs, which will explode for massive damage to allies and enemies alike if their fuse is lit. Combine that with lackluster support options in Veil and Infatuate, and Vivian is playing with fire far too much to warrant a place much higher than the middle of our list. Now, Kooper is the first Paper Mario's fire expert, although that's not a distinction he picks up until later in the game. When he's first obtained, he's a master of dealing with grounded enemies, knocking them around with as many shell attacks. He's useless against flying opponents and is a bit one-note overall. But this heroic Koopa will serve Mario well right from Chapter 1. And as mentioned, Kooper can pick up his Fire Shell technique in time to melt the icy adversaries of Chapter 7, allowing him to retain some relevance even later in the game. What Kooper is in the Nintendo 64 original, Koops is to the Thousand-Year Door. He's got the same first two moves, but combines them with a base point of defense inherent to all Koopas, and thus the ability to weather attacks for Mario slightly better than his cohorts. He replaces Koop's Dizzy Shell with a support move that buffs Mario's defense if you'd want the plumber to do the tanking instead. Also, Kooper must have noticed that the Thousand-Year Door has fewer ice enemies overall, because in place of a fire attack, he learns the armor-piercing Shell Slam, which is perfect for those tougher enemies in the later chapters that even Vivian's fiery options might struggle against. The first Paper Mario's roster is filled with partners that can only dream of that kind of versatility. But of all of them, Sushi may very well come the closest. She can damage any enemy with her first two moves or buff Mario's defense with Water Block. And Tsunami claims the highest theoretical damage ceiling of any attack that targets all foes. It'll require superhuman reaction time to master the button prompts granted, but that's part of the charm of Paper Mario's beloved spin on turn-based combat. Sushi scores even more points by coming in at exactly the right time, as her water attacks deal extra damage to the scorching hot fiends of Mount Lava Lava. She's thus a bit more specialized than most other partners, but in a game like this, timing truly is everything. By contrast, Paper Mario's very first partner, Goombario, doesn't stand out in any one particular area. Nonetheless, his small but focused toolkit boasts just the right type of synergy to make him a potent boss killer. He can charge up his attacks over and over for some truly massive damage numbers against individual targets, especially if the player has good timing with his signature multi-bonk technique. It's a shame that one of his abilities is wasted on a feature that the Peekaboo badge can fully replicate, but so long as he can charge up and bounce all over his foes' noggins, Goombario will be a valuable asset on Mario's quest. And with that said, we get to our S tier. On the other hand, if slowly powering up for a huge string of perfectly timed multi-bonks isn't your thing, then Watt is a perfect alternative for those harder bosses. Her basic Electro Dash can match the damage of other partners' FP costing single target moves, thanks to its ability to ignore defense. On top of that, she can increase Mario's offense if you're using him as your main source of damage, or paralyze the entire enemy party with a devastating Mega Shock. No matter what Mario needs, Watt can electrify combat far beyond what you'd expect of a newborn. Her mother has every reason to be proud. We've really established a trend here though with the sequel's overall stronger partners. Goombella manages to combine the best of both worlds between Goombario and Watt. and in doing so earns today's bronze medal. The Thousand Year Door offers partners more options for charging up for massive damage. And on top of that tried and true strategy, Goombella also comes equipped with a powerful new option in Rallywink. With this move, she can give her turn to Mario, making her the perfect support option for a superpowered plumber. That's true whether you're playing casually or pulling off the famous Danger Mario build. Never underestimate a Goomba. They might be the definition of cannon fodder, but if given a chance, they can be some of the strongest forces in the Mushroom Kingdom and parts beyond. But there is one strategy that can beat out even the most dedicated multi-bonk users in terms of efficiency. Lady Bo claims our silver medal for her mastery of this technique, dealing a small amount of damage many times. Her Smack and Fan Smack thus benefit more from offense-boosting badges than other partner attacks, and allow her to really bring the pain for relatively little effort. On top of this, Bo's signature Out of Sight combines the best aspects of Vivian's Veil and Goombella's Rallywink into one cheap, amazing ability. Unlike Veil, it doesn't take up Mario's turn as long as it's used second, essentially giving him a free turn afterwards like with Rallywink, while also allowing him to avoid damage. The possibilities here extend far beyond dodging the charged attacks of certain bosses, from giving Mario the opportunity to deal 2 turns of heavy damage to his enemies, to letting him heal up if he's in danger of being defeated. Bo absolutely should not be underestimated. It's no wonder she's declared herself leader of the Boos. Nonetheless, it shouldn't come as a shock that the strongest partner in the first 2 games comes to us from the Thousand Year Door. The Yoshi who hatches from an egg at Glitzville wins an even greater honor than the championship belt, our gold medal for the most powerful partner in Paper Mario. In part, it's because he takes Bo's tactic and dials it up to 11. His ground pound works similarly to Smack, and Stampede further brings the pain by damaging all enemies on the field at once. The second game gives Yoshi far more options to boost the strength of his attacks, allowing for some truly ridiculous numbers for a reasonable BP price. This all comes in addition to the single strongest attack in any partner's arsenal, at least from a story perspective. Gulp wields an enemy's strength against it by turning it into a projectile to spit at one of its allies, which happens to be the only way to defeat the otherwise invincible Armored Harriers in the Glitz Pit. Nowhere else in these games does a partner get to play such an essential role in the battle, and it's perfectly fitting for the brave little Yoshi who can take down any boss with a death by 1,000 cuts, or rather, a defeat crushed beneath the shoes of a powered-up horde of adorable dinosaurs. The Shadow Queen wishes she had an answer for that.